My name is Amelia, and I'm 25 now. But the story I need to tell began many years ago. It isn't a happy story from start to finish, but it is my story. I feel compelled to share it because I believe someone out there, someone who feels like I once did, might need to hear it. I grew up in a quiet town nestled in the shadow of the mountains. The winters were sharp and cold, blanketing the trees in snow and glazing the roads with ice. In the spring, wildflowers would burst from the earth, and the wind carried a sweet, earthy scent. Our house was small but always warm. It was a single-story home with 2 bedrooms and a kitchen so tiny you could barely turn around in it, but it was overflowing with love. My parents were Sarah and David. My mother worked at a local bakery. Every morning, she created bread, cakes, and cookies. She always returned home smelling like vanilla and sugar. My father was a mechanic who fixed cars. His hands were rough and calloused, but his hugs were the softest and safest place in the world. They were simple, hard-working people with incredibly kind hearts. I always believed I was their daughter. No one ever suggested otherwise. I never felt the need to ask questions. I even looked like them. My hair was a rich brown, just like my mother's. My eyes were a clear blue, a perfect match for my father's. We were a family. We laughed together, played board games, and shared dinner every single evening at the same worn wooden table. I had plenty of toys, shelves full of books, and warm clothes for the winter. My room was my sanctuary, with a soft bed covered in blue blankets. My mother would sing to me whenever I was sick, her voice a soothing balm. My father read bedtime stories to me every night without fail. He called me his sunshine and would kiss my forehead just before I drifted off to sleep. On weekends, we would go to the park or take long walks along the riverbank. We didn't have much money, but we were rich in joy. We had movie nights with bowls of buttery popcorn. We had a tradition of making pancakes every Sunday morning. I thought my life was perfect. I innocently assumed that every child lived a life just like mine. I never knew that anything was different about me. I never questioned why there were no photographs of me as a newborn in our family albums. I never wondered why my parents seemed a little older than the parents of my friends at school. But my entire world shifted on its axis when I turned 13. It was a cold, dreary afternoon in November. The sky was a heavy sheet of gray, and the wind howled outside. I was in my room, trying to focus on my homework. My Aunt Carol, my father's sister, came to visit. She had a booming voice and a personality that filled any room she entered. She and my mother were in the kitchen sipping hot tea. I came downstairs to get a glass of water. As I approached the kitchen door, I paused. I didn't intend to eavesdrop, but then I heard my name. Carol said, "Amelia still doesn't know she was adopted, does she?" My heart hammered against my ribs. My mother's voice was quiet. "No, not yet. We want to wait. She's only 13. My aunt replied that I would find out eventually. My hands began to tremble. I stood frozen, unable to move, unable to speak. I just listened. She came from a woman in the city. Carol said her birth mother simply gave her away. Sarah and David raised her as if she were their own. The words didn't make sense. I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. I turned and fled back upstairs to my room, closing the door silently behind me. I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the familiar pattern on the wall. Then the tears came. I cried until I had no tears left. That night, sleep never came. My pillow was soaked through. I dreaded seeing my parents in the morning. But when the sun rose, I went down to the kitchen, just like any other day. My mother was making toast. My father was reading the newspaper. They looked completely normal, but I felt like a stranger in my own home. I looked directly at my mother and asked, the words catching in my throat, "Am I adopted?" She turned, her movements slow, and looked at me. Her eyes were full of a soft sadness. She said, "Yes, sweetheart, you are, but we love you more than anything in this world." My heart shattered. "You lied to me," I whispered. "You are not my real parents." My father lowered the newspaper. He didn't look angry, only profoundly sad. He walked over to me and placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. "We never wanted to hurt you," he said. "We were always going to tell you, we just didn't know when the right time was." "I want to find my real parents," I said, my voice stronger now. "I want to leave." My mother went to my room and packed a small bag. She placed inside some clothes, a scarf, a jacket, and some sandwiches. My father gave me a small amount of money. They didn't try to stop me. They didn't tell me I couldn't go, but their eyes were filled with an unbearable sadness. I didn't say thank you. I was too consumed by my anger. I walked out of the house. I didn't have a clear plan, but I remembered something my aunt had said years ago. My birth parents lived in a city nearby called Stone Creek. It was about a 2-hour bus ride away. I walked to the bus stop. The cold wind bit at my face. I sat on the hard bench and waited, feeling a terrifying mix of fear and rage. I would not go back. When the bus arrived, I paid the driver and took a seat by the window. Trees blurred past, then buildings. My heart felt like a heavy stone lodged in my chest. When I got off the bus, I walked to the address I had scribbled in my notebook, something I had written down years ago after overhearing my aunt. I had no idea if it was still correct. The houses on this street looked tired and small. I walked slowly, clutching my bag tightly. When I found the house, I stood on the sidewalk for a long time before finally knocking on the door. A woman opened it. Her hair was streaked with gray, and her face was etched with fatigue. She stared at me with small, suspicious eyes. She said nothing. Then a man appeared behind her. He was thin and his shirt had a small hole in it. He looked at me for a moment. "Amelia?" he asked. "Yes," I said. "I think I'm your daughter." He didn't smile. He made no move to embrace me. He didn't look happy to see me. Another person pushed forward, a teenage boy older than me with an angry expression. "Why are you here?" he demanded. "We don't have room. We don't have food for another person." I looked back at the man, my birth father. "Life is hard here," he said, his voice flat. "We're poor, my wife. She's not a kind woman. We don't have any space. I'm sorry, Amelia, I can't help you." I felt as if the air had been punched out of my lungs. I wanted to cry, but I forced the tears back. My throat was tight. My legs felt weak. I turned around and walked away. No one tried to stop me. No one called my name. No one asked if I had eaten or where I would sleep. I walked until I found a park bench near the river. The water was dark and murky. The air was frigid. I sat there, hugging my small bag. I had never felt so alone, so completely empty. I thought maybe no one wants me. Maybe no one in the world truly loves me. I looked at the dark water. I thought that maybe if I just jumped in, all of it would stop. The pain, the cold, the sadness, the hurt. But a small, resilient voice deep inside my heart whispered, "Don't do it." With shaking hands, I pulled my phone from my pocket. I sent a message to my adoptive mother, Sarah. "Please help me. I want to come home. If you don't help me, I'm going to jump into the river." I sat there, my heart pounding in my chest. I stared at the phone, waiting. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. I started to cry, thinking they didn't care after all. Then my phone chimed. A message. "We are sending the money now. Please wait. Please don't do anything foolish. We love you. Please come home." I cried harder, but this time the tears were different. I felt a tiny warmth spread through my heart. A small flicker of hope. Before I continue with my story, I'd like to ask you something. Where in the world are you listening from? Knowing that someone is hearing my words, someone who might understand, gives me strength. Please let me know in the comments. I would truly love to know. I waited on that bench by the river. The wind was relentless and the sky was completely dark. My fingers felt like ice, but I couldn't let go of my phone. I read the message from my adoptive mother over and over. We are sending the money now. Please wait. Please don't do anything foolish. We love you. Please come home. That message was my lifeline. It was a small hope, but it was enough to keep me there. I waited for 2 more hours. My feet ached. My stomach was a hollow pit. I hadn't eaten since that morning, but it didn't matter. I just waited for the money transfer confirmation. When I finally got the notification from the bank, I stood up and walked to the nearest bus station. I had just enough money for a one-way ticket. I bought it and sat down to wait for the next bus. The woman behind the counter gave me a small, concerned smile. She asked if I was all right, but I couldn't find the words to answer. When the bus finally came, I sat by the window again. It was late at night now. The roads were deserted. The bus hummed along slowly. I looked out, but I saw nothing but my own reflection. I was thinking about my parents, Sarah and David. I was thinking about their faces when I had yelled at them. I was thinking about how I had stormed out of the house without a proper goodbye. I arrived in my town around midnight. It was eerily quiet. No cars, no people, just dark streets and empty sidewalks. I walked the familiar route to my house. I stood outside for a moment, looking at the warm light glowing in the living room window. I took a deep breath and opened the door. My mother was sitting on the couch. My father was standing by the window, looking out. When they saw me, they didn't ask questions. They didn't shout. My mother just stood up and walked towards me. She wrapped her arms around me and held me tightly. My father took the bag from my hand, set it on the floor, and gently touched my shoulder. Not a single word was spoken. I didn't say anything either. We just stood there in the safety of our home. Then my mother said, "Come sit down, you must be freezing." She brought me a warm blanket. My father made me a cup of tea. They gave me food, a bowl of hot soup and a piece of bread. I didn't talk. I just ate slowly, letting the warmth spread through me. They sat with me and they waited. After eating, I went to my room. Everything was exactly as I had left it. My bed, my books, my blue blanket. It was as if I had never been gone. But I felt like a different person. I lay down and stared at the ceiling, my mind racing. I thought about my birth parents. I thought about their cold, unwelcoming house. I thought about my angry brother. I replayed their faces in my mind. They hadn't smiled. They hadn't wanted me. Then I thought about my real life, my real parents, the ones who raised me, the ones who had stayed up all night waiting for my message, the ones who sent money without a single question. I felt a wave of regret so powerful it was a physical ache. I felt ashamed. The heavy stone in my chest was back. The next morning, my mother came into my room. She was holding a cup of tea. She didn't say anything. She just placed the cup on my bedside table and sat down beside me. Her hands were so warm. She looked at me and I looked at her. I whispered, "I'm sorry." She gently stroked my hair. "You are our daughter," she said softly. "Forever." I began to cry then, like a small child. She didn't try to stop me. She just held me close. "Why didn't you tell me the truth?" I asked through my sobs. "We wanted to tell you when you were older," she explained. "We were scared. We were so scared of losing you, we never wanted to hurt you." I was quiet, but in my heart I understood. They weren't perfect, but their love for me was real and unconditional. They had given me everything they could. They may not have carried me in the womb, but they had carried me in their hearts every single day. That day, my father came home from work early. He was holding a bouquet of flowers. He smiled when he saw me. "Welcome home, princess," he said. That word, princess, made me cry all over again. He used to call me that when I was little. I remembered the games we played, the times he pushed me on the swing set, the afternoons he spent patiently fixing my bike. I knew then with absolute certainty that I was truly and deeply loved. The days passed slowly. My parents gave me space. They never asked me about what happened. They just treated me with gentle care. I started helping my mother in the kitchen again. We baked cookies together. I cleaned the living room. I folded my own laundry. I started going back to school. My teachers were relieved to see me. My friends asked, "Where were you?" But I didn't tell them the whole story. I just said, I wasn't feeling well. This story was mine. This pain was mine. And this love I was realizing was also mine. One evening, I was helping my mother wash the dishes. I looked at her and asked, "Can I call you Mom again?" She stopped what she was doing and looked at me, her eyes filling with tears. "Oh, sweetheart," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "In my heart, you never stopped." After that, something shifted in our house. The air felt warm again. The silences were comfortable, not tense. The rooms felt full again. We never spoke of the river. We never spoke of the house I had visited. We never spoke of the angry words or the bitter tears. We just moved forward. We went to the market together. My father fixed the flickering lamp in my room. My mother bought my favorite kind of cereal. We watched a comedy and laughed until our sides hurt. One Saturday, we made a huge breakfast. Pancakes, eggs, juice, and fresh fruit. My mother said, "Let's make this our new Saturday tradition." I smiled. I liked that very much. At school, I started to smile more. I focused on my homework. I joined a book club. I read stories about girls who were lost and then found. I felt like those stories were about me. I knew I would never forget what happened. I would never forget the day I left or the terrifying night by the river. But I also knew that I had come back. I had come home. My parents never once said, "We told you so." They didn't hold my actions against me. They just loved me. And that love was stronger than blood. That love was stronger than pain. One day, my father was working on the car and I sat near him. He handed me a small wrench and said, "Want to help?" I laughed. "I don't know how." "You'll learn," he said with a grin. "One day you'll know more than me." I looked at him and smiled. I felt proud. That evening, my mother gave me an old photo album. Inside were pictures of me as a baby, small, laughing, sleeping, playing. "You are part of every single memory," she said. "You've always been here." I slowly turned the pages. I saw my baby pictures. I saw birthday parties, holidays, snowmen we built, trips to the beach. I saw love captured in every photograph. That night I slept soundly. For the first time in weeks, my heart felt completely at peace. Many years have passed since that time. I am 25 years old now. I still live in the same town where I grew up. My life is different now, but in many ways it feels the same. I finished school, went to college, and studied to become a nurse. I wanted to help people. I wanted to care for others the way my parents had always cared for me. Now I work at a small local clinic. I see people every day from all walks of life. I try to listen to their pain. I try to be kind like my mother. I try to be strong like my father. I still live close to them. They are older now. My father's hair is gray and his hands move a little slower when he's fixing things. My mother walks with more care and needs to rest during the day. But in my heart, they are exactly the same. Every weekend, I visit them. I help with the house chores. I cook their favorite meals. I take my mother to her doctor's appointments. I drive my father to the market. We sit together in the evenings, drinking tea and talking about simple things. The weather, the neighbors, a funny show on TV. Sometimes we just sit in a comfortable silence. We don't need to talk all the time. We just need to be together. We never really spoke in detail about the day I left. We never discussed the river, the house in the city, or the hurtful words I had said. My parents never demanded an explanation. They never made me feel guilty. But in my heart, I always remember. I remember standing in front of that cold, dilapidated house. I remember hearing the words, "We don't have space." I remember the crushing emptiness in my chest. And then I remember the warm soup, the soft blanket, and the quiet, unconditional hug. That is the part of the memory I choose to hold on to. I sometimes think about my birth family. I don't feel hate for them. I don't feel love for them either. I understand now that some people cannot give what they do not possess. They didn't have peace. They didn't have kindness. They didn't have space in their own hearts. They were a chapter in my life, but they were not the whole story. My real story is here with Sarah and David, the parents who stayed, the parents who chose me, the parents who loved me even when I pushed them away with all my might. They didn't have to take me in. They didn't have to give me a home, but they did. They gave me birthday parties and help with my homework. They gave me hugs after nightmares and a place where I always felt safe. They gave me laughter on quiet nights and comfort during hard days. I remember one time during a thunderstorm, I was terrified. I was 10 years old. The thunder was so loud, and I was crying in my bed. My father came into my room with a flashlight and a big, fluffy blanket. He lay down next to me and told me silly stories until I finally fell asleep. I never forgot that night. I remember my mother holding my hand backstage during my first school play. I was so nervous I could barely breathe. She smiled at me and said, "Just look for me in the audience. You'll be fine." These are the moments that built my life. Love is not always about who gave you life. Love is about who makes your life worth living. Love is about who stays even when it's hard, who waits for your message in the middle of the night, who sends money without asking questions, who makes you soup when you return home with a broken heart. Now I know something fundamentally important. Blood does not make someone a parent. Love does. Time does. Care does. A real parent is someone who wakes up in the middle of the night when you cry. Someone who packs your lunch every single day. Someone who teaches you how to ride a bike. Someone who forgives you even when you hurt them deeply. I hurt my parents that day. I left them without a word of thanks. I yelled at them. I made them cry. But they welcomed me back with open arms. They didn't need me to be perfect. They just needed me to come home. Sometimes at night, I still remember that dark time. I remember sitting by the river. I remember how close I was to losing everything. But I didn't lose everything, because two people chose to love me, and that love saved my life. I have a small notebook now. Inside it, I write down my feelings, my memories, and the lessons I've learned. One page says, "You don't need to be born into a family to belong in one." Another page says, "Kindness is a language that is heard louder than words." And the last page says, "Even when you feel completely lost, someone is waiting for you to come home." Sometimes I look in the mirror and think about that scared, confused 13-year-old girl. The girl who ran away to find something she had possessed all along. She didn't know it back then. But she knows it now. She was always loved. She was never alone. She just needed time and a painful journey to finally see it. Now I am stronger. My heart still carries the scar of that pain, but it also carries the strength of the healing that followed. I smile more, I love more, I forgive more easily. I don't need to ask why me anymore, because I finally understand. My story was never broken. It just had unexpected twists and turns. It had shadows and it had light. And most of all, it had love. Thank you for listening to my story. If it has resonated with you in any way, I hope you hold on to this one thought. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. Somewhere, someone loves you in a way that is quiet but powerful. And sometimes that is more than enough. This is my story, and I am proud of it. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, comment, and share. More emotional and inspiring stories are coming soon.